Coldest summer in California so far. Now, this is July 14th. If you look at the mean daily temperature percentile over the last 30 days, see where it says record lowest? Yeah, this is the complete opposite of what we're being told about this world right now, that it's nonstop burning up. We're in a broiling planet, charbroil, like double extra heat. Yet what they're showing you with the real over the last 30 days, a large portion of that coastal area of California is well below normal. How does that bode anyway? And then we got South Korea lashed by heavy rains. And here's another thing I would encourage you to look over here on the right side with me. If you're noticing that that doesn't work. It doesn't. Follow me to the right. Now, most of these absurd snowstorms that we're seeing are over in Asia as well. Like second time China has had snow so far, and it's in Gansu province, which is out west. But South Korea, and you're looking around the world, the amount of flooding that's going on is absolutely biblical in the sheer terms of the number of floods going on and the depth of water of these floods. Record flood after record flood, once in a 1,000-year flood is now the normal type of flood that we're getting. Pakistan, it's like the third or fourth time I've seen Pakistan just getting unbelievably flooded. But again, that was a cradle of civilization that dried out. It's becoming wet again. There's really nothing there to trap the water. If that was a forest and they were to get the same amount of rainfall, I think that would absorb quite a bit of that. But they're in desert, and there's nowhere for that water to go. It's just straight away. It's hard packed there, and it eventually will start growing and get green, and then that water will be less and less and less, and these floods will be less. But until that point comes where the vegetation starts to dampen the flood effects. And then Lampang, that's down in Thailand, another amount of heavy flooding there. And it's just, there's so many flood destinations going on. There's something that has definitely changed. And as this last video, I was trying to talk about the QBO, which is a quasi-biennial oscillation, and it talks about where the winds are flowing, and right now the easterly winds are overtaking the westerly winds, are absolutely pegged off the chart. The amount of easterly winds, they literally can't measure it anymore because it's gone far beyond even the most record measurements that they've ever had before. So they're trying to create new elements inside the chart. Like the peg on the chart was 24 meters per second. They were clocking in over that. So what that means is generally at this time of the year, the westerlies are blowing. So in this time, the wind is so strong from the other direction that I wouldn't say it's reversing, but it's blowing the counter direction to the point that it's off the chart in the strength. So 24 meters per second is somewhere around 65 miles per hour. So that's getting toward a hurricane strength wind that's blowing the opposite direction of where it should at this time of the year. So that's why they don't really have measurements this strong, because it just doesn't manifest like that. In Antarctica, it had almost got near the record coldest temperature ever recorded on our planet, but it was a few degrees off of that. That in turn knocked a huge amount of cold out of the Antarctic basin that came up in Chile and Peru and Argentina. And the border crossing with Chile and Argentina had to close because it was too cold. So there was no travel. It was just too cold for anybody, life-threatening cold, so they closed the border. Like, this is what's happening in the southern hemisphere. And at the same time, with the reversing winds, and I'm not going to say the entire atmosphere is reversing, I'm just saying the normal flow that we get from easterlies and westerlies, and how our intertropical convergence zone moves up and down off the equator and creates the monsoon and El Niños and La Niñas, that wind pattern is significantly very different, to the point of being never recorded being this strong. Now, being this strong was only from the satellite record and maybe further back when they could, some sailors had noticed something was different. So we'll say 200 years of time. I'll be generous even with that point. but we've never measured it in a multi-thousand year fashion. So we really don't know. Is this just part of a cycle that comes back again? Is this really the reason of the onset of things, where the destruction of crop growing regions on the planet when we couldn't grow as easily as we could have before? So the SOT.net, this is a great one here. If you haven't been to SOT, you got to check it out. Their Earth Changes section is top notch. So they have contributors from all over the world that try to consolidate onto the site here. So Pakistan warns of urban flooding. Again, there's just nowhere for that water to go. And you can watch some of the video with the floods, pop one of these up. But that's the amount of water coming out of these little tiny streams, villages all along these little streams, and then suddenly they turn into giant raging rivers. But rewind the clock, and I am sure that the rivers were much wider than they are now, probably where they're building. And here's some pictures of the South Korean floods. So again, what we're seeing is these rivers, just as it was in Texas, they're like going out miles from their normal locations. And this seems to be happening across the planet. It's not just in the US. It's not just in Asia. It's in the Middle East. It's in the Southern Hemisphere. It is everywhere. What is that, a Bigfoot festival right there? Right on. 7.3 earthquake off of Alaska. Now, Ransom, the reason I wanted to show you this, because I wanted to get your opinion. Have you heard of this Utah vortex wildfire that they keep showing here? Is this making the news where you're at? Because that is a EF2 fire tornado, is the best way. Like, if that was a spinning tornado in Kansas, that would be at least an EF2 or 3. But, the width and the circumference of where it's tapping on the ground there, that's a Firenado. So I don't know. What do you think, Ransom? Do you have anything to comment on that? Because I've seen this picture rolling through a few times on my feeds.
Well, it's obviously very possible. I mean, we have giant dust devils here. So if you can imagine, if that came up and that draft hit right where there's a bunch of hot air exploding up into the atmosphere, it's going to cause this effect. I mean, it's literally the same effect that causes tornadoes. So for all intents and purposes, that is what it is. It's just the scale of it. I mean, that's horrific. That's how you get a town barbecued right there, like where no one gets to leave because it just happens out of nowhere. And dust devils are fast. They move along the ground really fast, just like a tornado does. It's on a smaller scale, but this is like in between those things. This is being supercharged by the heat of the fire, and it's causing this tornado effect. Yeah, that's terrifying right there. I actually didn't see that, but that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and then what do we got here? Let me pop on to the Watchers News is another one. So those of you who are always asking, like, David, how do you find your news? I haven't refreshed this page in a day or so. Oh, it did refresh itself. So then we have historic rainfall again in Tokyo, or around Tokyo. Okay, that's a major city, and it's starting to see stationary storm drops, record rainfall in what's that? Zaragoza, Spain. Heaviest rains in 120 years. That's how South Africa images. Pakistan. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. So what is it? The Quad Cities in Iowa under emergency rainfall. And again, you're just starting to see this over and over again of just floods and floods and floods. And there's the Southern Data Ocean. Again, please, everybody. The reason I was doing that QBO story is I kept getting so many people hitting me up going, the oceans have reversed. No, they haven't. The salinity has changed enough where the downwelling or the upwelling of the currents that take that surface water down, and it causes that, massive. It'd take 1,000 years to circulate all around the planet, right? So that is what is different. The salinity. It's not the current itself. It could be in a vertical fashion, and we're talking just almost non-measurable, but the surface salinity is different. So they ran with this whole thing like the entire surface of the entire ocean has reversed itself. It hasn't. So that was the same thing. Like the easterly westerlies, they come every year. This is how we get seasons. It hasn't reversed the entire atmosphere. It's just an anomaly on one region of the equatorial band that is blowing east when it should be blowing west. But the rest of the weather, I don't know. Is it tied to that? Because we're getting a huge amount of floods that should not be happening. Like, look at these massive landslides in Ecuador. That's from massive rain. Monsoon floods, everywhere you're looking. China, heat wave, record demand. I mean, they're getting stuck with heat domes over it. And this is a great site. Anybody would like to look at the watchers. And shout out to everybody who does all this compilation of this sort of thing. And here's another one. A month's worth of rain in 2 hours in Moscow. And then we saw these crazy floods where all these people were down in New York City, stuck in the water in New York City. Like, what is going on with the floods? That's another thing. Something has to be tied together with the QBO and the amount of all these other floods. So if the equatorial winds are sort of reversing at themselves, then is this responsible and making other things reverse back on itself in different latitudes and cloud cells going up north and south from the equator? Is this why we're getting these floods? Or is it something to do with the decreasing magnetic field and more galactic cosmic rays really starting to pummel us, along with those two naked eye supernovas? Because if anything knows about Chinese history or in the Middle East, the Sufis and these guys and gals, it was men at that time, the keepers of knowledge, they would notice when a supernova would be visible to the populace that the weather just completely went ape, for a better term. That's with one. We've had two in the last year. So remember the speed of light. When the light, and that was the thing about 2-3 weeks ago, you couldn't see this latest one because it wasn't there. The light hadn't reached us yet. So if you're talking about visible light speeding along with cosmic rays, right? Once you see it, the boom, that wave, that light wave is literally past you. So now we're getting all these record floods. We had two naked visible eye novas in the skies. And now we have our winds reversing at least partially on the equator. And then we have all record floods on all continents. Just there's not a flood anymore. It is literally once in a 1,000-year flood every time now. So that this all has to be tied together. And then we're changing the economy as of this week. And AI is coming in to take over a thing where humans won't be. So, you start to layer this on top and it's just, I don't know, Ransom, I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm glad we do the show every week because I'm just trying to figure it out along with everybody here in the discussion. So if you have any comments, please throw them by and we will take a look at them, see what we got for your comments tonight.
Yeah, what the thing that bothers me is, you were pointing out that Firenado, and then the people freaking out about the ocean, thinking it's going in reverse, and it's kind of sad because I know that they don't teach the same things, I guess, or I got lucky when I was young about certain scientific principles. Nothing, everything is always normal to me until there's something not normal. So if I look at something that has to do with buoyancy and the circulation of the earth spinning, and I look at it, that makes sense to me. Just like underwater, there's little tornadoes, so to speak, under the water that turn stuff, but it's all based on the turning of the earth. So if the earth actually, changed its speed or something, then you would see these miraculous things happen. But people freak out about stuff just because they don't understand it. Like, I don't know how often it's like a real big thing on Twitter right now to show the Doppler radar system active, and then people freaking out say, look, they're using energy to make the weather, man. Now, they might be trying to do stuff like that, but I think it's much more important for them to have it where you believe that they can. And, we talked about some of the amounts of energy that's actually involved in some of this stuff that we're talking on the planet, like the heat exchange from the ocean to the atmosphere, trying to move a hurricane. You're talking about something that's like, thousands of nuclear bombs worth of energy. You're not moving it. That's why they laughed at kind of Trump, when he said to drop a bomb in it. It was funny because, all he would have did is made a dirty bomb, basically, where you had, radioactive rain falling on people. It wouldn't have did anything to the hurricane itself. It might have maybe energized it a little more because it added heat to it, but not to the, scale of the hurricane itself. It's like covering a big portion of our planet there. Um, what's scary to me is, you know, people not understanding all this. And even when you do have a basic understanding of it, like I was just showing that thing in Japan, imagine how freaked out they get when they have a historical history of massive tsunamis, volcanoes, and earthquakes that are devastating. And then, the thing that went around is this comic book was predicting that they would have a big earthquake and or volcano happening, in this year. And then all of a sudden they have earthquake swarms. So, they're all nervous over there. Where fiction and nonfiction kind of meet together.
Please remember civilizationcycle.com and also buy me a coffee /civilization cycle.